I've been asked for a skin rendering tutorial, so that's what I'm gonna do. And before I begin, I just want to mention that using references really makes a whole difference in your art, especially when it comes to like shadows and highlights and like lighting and stuff like that. And a general tip is don't be afraid to try out contrasts and values, as it makes such a big difference in your art and how lively it looks. I'd say rather use a few too dark shadows than to use no shadows at all. So to begin with the actual tutorial, I already have my sketch layer. I begin with my base layer, which I put on alpha lock so I don't draw outside of the lines. And then I will start by blocking in my main shadows and my main highlights as well as blush. Like you can see me through there. Then I will blend it. I use pretty harsh brush strokes, but that is of course optional depending on what your style looks like and your personal preferences. Yeah, so then I will start blending it out, and then I will go in with a darker color and further define the harsher shadows that I want to keep, especially around the nose and the mouth. And I will just keep on adding darker shadows as I go, still in the base layer. So I will go darker and darker until I feel like it's enough of a good base to work with on other layers as well. I will blend this out as well. Remember to keep some of the shadows more harsh in edges, like the shadow under the nose for example, since that is cast shadow and the light is supposed to go from sort of over her a bit from the side. So the nose will give a cast shadow that will be harsher, and so we want to keep those lines more harder than the other ones, like around her face. I don't necessarily count the lips as a part of her skin, but I do draw them on the skin layer most of the times, as I like to blend it in with the skin a bit to make it look more natural. You can do whatever you want, really. It's just my preference. Here I'm just redefining the blending, making it look a bit smoother. I still like to keep the harsh lines, so if you would zoom in on this, you would see that the harsh lines are still there, but from afar I want it to look smooth. Once again, going in and defining the shadows even further. What I usually do with the shadows is that I would go right and down on the color wheel, so more saturated and darker colors. Now I'm adding a second layer on top of everything, which I put to multiply, and I will pick the base color, which I used for the skin, to draw in some more shadows that I don't want to put on the base layer in case I risk messing it up. So for here example, I start defining the nose way more, and then I decided I did not like it like that, so I just removed the top shadows of it. You can also do like me and go in and put the layer to alpha lock and change the saturation, luminosity, whatever you want if you don't like how it's looking. So here I go back and forth between that layer and the base layer and just defining the shadows and stuff. Here I removed a multiply layer to go in with the darkest colors yet for like the lips and the nose, to make them not blend in with the rest of the face as much, to give more depth. Also defining the sides of the nose, the shadows, which shadows looks correct, which look out of place. Here I also remembered that I wanted the light to come from on top of her, so I made her upper lip even darker. I go back to the multiply layer and I just keep adding some even darker shadows to even further define all of the shadows on her face. And here I add in ClipStudio Paint, it's called Add Glow. So I add that layer and I pick the lightest part of the base layer and put in some more glowy highlights. I define these by erasing and blending a lot. And here I add a second multiply layer. This is optional as well, but I wanted even more depth in her shadows, so I made another layer, defined her eyelids more, for example. This stage is also optional. I just do it for stylization purposes, but I do some scratching on all over the drawing. I really like this method when I draw traditionally, so I sort of started using it digitally as well because I thought it looked nice. The very last part that I do is that I take another layer with pure white and I just put it on where I want even more highlights to be, and then we're done. I do feel like my method is pretty simple. It's more about how you study references and how you learn from looking at references about how light works and how shadows work. So, for example, when I started drawing digitally, I didn't do that much freehand drawing. Actually, I used a lot of references, so I think that helped me a lot in my progress. Again, my main tips are just to use references, don't be scared to try to use contrast and a lot of shadows, play around with light, stuff like that. The tip that no one wants to hear but is actually really important is to just keep practicing and you will get there eventually if you do struggle with drawing skin or like lighting and stuff. So just comment if you want a tutorial on anything else like eyes or how I draw lips or anything like that. Thank you again for watching and I hope this was helpful.